This is a memorial to the memory of my lifelong friend, Gary Arlo Haines. Our friendship was instrumental in my becoming a musician and having the career that I have today. Gary was a friend of my older brother, Steve, and he would visit our house on Berryville Avenue when they were teenagers. On one such visit, he heard me playing my electric guitar and asked if I wanted to start a band, and of course I said yes. Our first band was called the Spiders. We started out with just the two of us, and we both sang. We played for events at Arlo's church and in his basement for parties for our friends. We were eventually joined by Mike Hurst on saxophone, and we performed for our classes at Virginia Avenue School. Then David Wright took over on saxophone. Dave is included in the video that you see. Dave was in the Marine Band later and then started a big band in the DC area called the Right Touch and still performs for many official events for senators, presidents, etc., etc. Eventually we had a band with Mike Pertobal on bass and Ron Wilson on guitar called the Princetons. Arlo's brother Harry was stationed in Alaska in the service, and he had a band called the Princetons. We liked that name, so we stole it. So we became the Princetons. We were mainly playing Beatles songs and most music from the bands that were popular in England at the time. One of the first times that the Princetons played was at the Moose Club in Stephen City, although it might have been a VFW at that time, I don't remember. But the first time we played, we actually got paid, I think it was 98 cents, and I was ecstatic. I thought that was the bomb. We played at all the local teen centers, including the War Memorial Building in Winchester. When we played out of town, we would talk using a fake English accent as if we were from England, and the kids would come up and ask us for our autographs. We had these cool white suits with Beatle boots. We would take our boots to Mr. Bartley at his shoe shop and have him make the heels taller. Most of my peers know me as Fly, and I got that nickname from the Haines family. When we had the Princetons, we used to practice in the basement of their house, and their father, Sadi, instead of calling me Philip, he would call me Fly Lip, and eventually it just got shortened to Fly. So I owe my nickname to the Haines family. There was one time when we had a Volkswagen van. It had a sunroof, and we had taken the middle seat out to make room for our equipment when we traveled. One day after practice, I took Mike Pertobal home. He lived on Cincinnati Road, and after dropping him off, I was heading back to town, and I made the curve right there at Greenwood grocery store, and I'm not sure what happened, but the van did a 180 and turned over on its side and slammed into a tree and wrapped around that tree like a soda can. And I had a concussion, and I really don't remember what happened after that, but I am told that somehow I got out of the vehicle, walked up to the grocery store, and asked if I could use the phone. And they said yes. And who did I call? I called the Haineses. And I said, I had a little accident, and can you come pick me up? And they said, sure. So they had no idea what had happened, and when they saw the wreck, they couldn't believe that I had actually survived. Someone took me to the hospital, and that's when I came to, and I was in the emergency room. And again, I had not remembered what happened. I just had a little cut over one of my eyes, and that was it. So I was very lucky. Eventually, we were joined by Bud Strawderman on drums, and Arlo went out front, and then Haines joined on vocals. Eventually, Mike and Ron were drafted in the Army, and Shug Smallwood came in to play guitar, and I switched over to keyboards. After I graduated high school, I attended the Tennessee Institute of Broadcasting in Nashville, and I lived near the Acuff Rose Publishing and Recording Company. I would walk by there all the time and always dreamed of recording there one day. And it was Arlo that made that happen. More about that later. In the early 70s, we started a band called Happy Dog, which included Harry, Shug, and Ron. Then we did a stint with Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey provided some interesting adventures. We did some recording in Nashville and put out a 45. The manager for the band was Richard Obitz. He was stationed in Nashville, and he knew a lot of people there. We were playing a gig in Hagerstown at a club, and Dick brought Charlie McCoy with him. Charlie was one of the well-known harmonica players in Nashville and played on many sessions. And I just happened to have a little cheap harmonica, and he got up on stage and jammed with us, and of course he tore it up. Then we were on the road. We were playing for a concert down South Virginia. I forget exactly where it was, but we were opening up for a band called Steam. They had the song out, Na Na, Na Na, Kiss Him Goodbye. And they were actually a very good band. They played a lot of their original songs, and we were really impressed with them. When we went back to our rooms, Dick invited us over to his room. We went over, and sitting on the bed playing guitar was Charlie Daniels, who we knew who Charlie was because he was producing some of Dick's bands down in Nashville. And this was before he got really famous with Devil Went Down to Georgia and other songs. So we had some really good experiences with Milk and Honey. Lenny and Ginger had the band, and we played a lot of places up and down the coast and always had a great time. After Milk and Honey, Arlo and I put together Applejack, which included Shug Smallwood and Mike Dorsey. And then we went to Baltimore to join a band called Animal Crackers. Harry Haines was also in that band. And several of the band's members lived in a house in Baltimore when we weren't on the road. And there were many times when Arlo and I would play a gig in Baltimore and drive back to Winchester, getting back in town, at 4 in the morning. There were a few times when my car would break down, so I would call my dad to come pick us up. He wasn't very happy about that. In the 70s, Arlo and Shug opened up a store called The Drum Shop. They sold musical equipment, and they also started a promotion business called Cody Promotions in 1979, and they booked local and well-known performers. They had Wolfman Jack come to Winchester and did a performance at the Backroom Lounge, and the band I had at the time, which was Fly, opened up for him. In the early 1980s, Arlo got a publishing contract with Acuff Rose Company in Nashville. We went to Nashville and recorded a number of songs there. So this fulfilled my dream I had when I was going to school in Nashville of one day recording at Acuff Rose. So Arlo made that happen. A lot of the songs that were recorded there and at Glenn Alexander's studio can be found on YouTube under the name Alexander Haines Band. During this time, Arlo had a house band at the Cabaret Lounge called Park Avenue, which included Bud Strouderman. I think they were there for like 3 years or something. Later on, Arlo played in a trio with Dimitri Callis. Dimitri was one time a member of the Four Seasons. And this band with Dimitri also included Gary St. Clair. Gary and Dimitri had a band in the 60s called Flavor, and they had a hit song called Sally Had a Party. The Princetons reunited in 1995 with Boo Snyder on bass, Dale King on drums, and we recorded a CD of original songs. Arlo and his wife Gloria owned a restaurant on Valley Avenue called Capone's. They had a house band called Midnight Choir, and on off nights, Arlo, Boo, and I would perform our original songs acoustically. In 2004, Arlo formed the Haines agency in Stevens City, which involves itself with investigations, personal protection, security services, process services, and law enforcement training. I remember Arlo telling me about his trip to Israel for security training and what a life-changing experience it was for him. Part of the Haines agency involved providing security for concerts that were held at Hanley High School in the Patsy Cline Auditorium. He provided security for Leanne Rimes and Winona when they performed. I will always remember his powerful drumming, his smooth vocals, great harmonies, great sense of humor, our songwriting together, our many travels, and especially the fact that in later years he would always call to check on me, see how I was doing, and always keep in contact. I will miss you, my brother, and I will think of you always.